People need an income that's guaranteed to them.
If you lose money to taxes, you never get that money back.
You need to get serious about adding some lower risk.
Greed. I don't like greed.
The thing to be afraid of, honestly, is the thing that we're not thinking of, the black swan event.
There's a tsunami coming. Bye.
Welcome to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Just coffee talk.
There's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter. Who do you listen to? Who do you not listen to? You have to stay focused.
A fun and informative look at the issues of wealth, retirement, and protecting your life savings.
These advisors out there that were trained to sell, and have all these fees, they don't want to talk about this product, so they make less money.
And now, Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers.
Well, welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk. I'm your host, Charisse Rivers, and we have a special guest in the house, one of my favorite dudes in town, actually, and just somebody who's all about fighting crime and public safety. We have Sheriff Billy Woods here, and he is here to talk to us about the 1% and half-penny sales tax and this referendum. And hey, we got to vote here in a couple of days. It's almost election day here, and he's here to share with us his thoughts and how this voting yes could really help our community in Marion County and the city of Ocala. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. You know, as we were talking before, getting on air here, it's been a long time since I've been in here. What the heck, you know?
I know. Okay, so for all of our listeners who've been listening for almost 10 years now, we promised, 7 years ago when Sheriff Woods came in here and we talked about right before the holidays, scams and what to look out for. And we said, okay, every year we'd have you back in here. And life happened.
It does. Listen, I'll take the blame. My schedule gets packed and they keep me busy. That is for sure.
Well, we're making a promise on air right now that we're every year in
You heard
December,
that, right, folks? You heard it. We're going to do it.
And we're going to make sure you guys are up to par with what's going on in our community, especially if there's interesting scams out there that I almost got fooled on one myself. So
pretty much everybody does. You know, even myself. I get the phone calls. You know, I get those scams that come across, and some of them will say, "Hey, I'm Sheriff Billy Woods." Oh, really? So am I. But yeah, those scams are out there. And really what's sad, now that you mention it, you know, it's getting worse, and it's targeting our elderly, our seniors. We had a case recently to the tune of $350,000 where the people just lost everything, their life savings. So we need to do that and talk about it.
Let's keep our pinky promise going.
You got it.
All right. Well, you're an amazing steward, and you train up some guys in town, and you care about everybody, and you follow, love thy neighbor and this community relationship. And, before we get started and talk about this 1% half-penny sales tax and voting yes, let's talk about Ocala, the city of Ocala, Marion County. Like, how safe are we? Where are we at? And where are you hoping for us to go when it comes to the safety of our citizens?
We are safe. Marion County, city of Ocala, you've got two of the best law enforcement, Dunellen and Bellevue police departments. You have the best law enforcement. And here's what makes us unique about that. And why I say that is, which this is unusual, not just around the state of Florida, but around the nation as well, is when you work in a county, when you have multiple agencies, they have to work collaboratively together. And one of the things with us here in Marion is all of us, the chiefs and myself, we grew up together through the ranks. We grew up together, working together from day one, 30-some years ago for all of us. And when you have that relationship, it makes it easy to make a phone call. It's easy to say, hey, look, what help you need, what resources you send it, and keeping our citizens. But we all think the same way, okay? Our philosophies, our beliefs, our strong stances on protecting citizens, what we will not tolerate in this community, which I think every community should not tolerate. Let's make that clear. I wish more would stand up. And it's safe. I don't have my numbers in front of me, but I can tell you this. Since I've taken office, there's been a reduction in crime in Marion County by 11%.
I've heard that.
Yeah, and that's overall crime. So I don't want people to go out there, he shared his reduction in this. You know how it goes. But the fact is, it's all reported crime that my office has received since taking office. And down deep, I'm proud of that because, truthfully, it's not me. It's the men and women that work in my office. And for me to instill in them to care about the community, to reach out. And I probably get a more joy out of, instead of making the arrest, don't get me wrong, I love messing up a bad guy's day in a heartbeat. I think that was on a TV show. But anyways, so the fact is when a citizen gives me an email or calls or texts me and says, hey, Sheriff, Deputy such and such, I want to thank them. They stood by me while I had to deal with a hard time of loss of a family member, or they stood out in the rain and helped me change a tire. That's what warms my heart, and I think that's what makes us safe and great.
Yeah. Well, I feel like over the last 10 years, we are living in a safer community. I feel it. People know it. And just by your actions and the team and even, OPD, just everybody's here to win it and protect everybody. Marion County is a different kind of county. City of Ocala, we really do come together and wrap ourselves in arms.
That's exactly right.
I'm going to tell you that. So let's talk about our first responders and this 1% half-penny sales tax. I really want to dive into, if somebody's deciding to vote yes, they're probably like, well, why, Charisse? And why for public safety? So how does it help law enforcement, this extra money, how does it help law enforcement, the fire department, and the EMS services?
Let's start with the why. Okay. So, and I tell people, I try to put it in perspective. So our residency right now, we're pushing 450,000. Okay. Now keep in mind, when I took office, our residential population was roughly around 309,000. We're predicted to be pushing 600,000 in about 2 years. So you have a lot of residents here. But however, when I started in my career 35 years ago, one of the things we did not have, and it was very little of, is what we call transit population. And most counties and most cities face this today because of this, because it's so easy to travel in this day and age. You can get from Pensacola to the Keys in one day with no problem, whether it's by flight or even by car. Maybe it's a long drive, but however, you can get there quickly. But we have a lot of people that commute into our county for work, for visiting, for shopping. And that's about to the tune of 200,000 people, okay? Just because they're non-residents doesn't mean I don't protect them, okay? I still have to provide them the same services. When they come into the county, they're taking our services, but they don't pay the taxes. So when it comes to my budget, the fire department's budget, our budgets come off of the millage rate, off of you who own property. That's where it comes from. So when you have other residents coming in here to exhaust our resources, in my opinion, they should contribute as well, too. The current sales tax is right now, and you've probably already heard it, 33% of it comes from non-residents. That's a huge amount.
It's huge. From the 1% we're already paying.
So the other thing I tell people is I put it in perspective from my end, from my budget. So the larger we get, the more I'm going to have to do this. You remember years ago, there was a problem about replacing vehicles, and they drove some sorry vehicles. But now that we've got that all fixed and we're back on the same path, roughly replacement of vehicles for me each year is to the tune of $10 million, okay? And that's what comes out of the sales tax right now. Now, if the sales tax goes away, I still have to replace vehicles. So where do you think that $10 million is going to go?
The people.
That's exactly right. It's going to go back to the residents. It's going to go back to them. The vehicles have to be replaced. And the only thing that means is millage probably will go up.
Yes, certainly.
It will be forced up, not by my choice or anybody else's choice, because they got to have the cars to respond to you when they call. Same with the fire department. These trucks don't have live forever stamp on them. They have to be replaced. Fire trucks, and my dad was the former fire chief of the city of Ocala, so I'm a little familiar with what they have to deal with. Those vehicles has to be replaced on a regular basis. These are the things that help me be able to fiscally make sound decisions, and truthfully, these people that come in, they should pony up as well, too. Here's the other thing, and I just thought of this the other day, all right?
That was going to be good.
Yes, it is. So all these turds that we have, the bad guys, I'll keep my language a little clean for you here, but most of them, they ain't got a pot to you-know-what in, okay? But however, they still buy products out here. Most of them probably don't own property, so they don't pay for property taxes. So guess what? Sales tax, I'm going to get the money out of them as well, too. So
Nice.
you like that, huh? I love that type of thinking. Let's get it from everybody that we can that contributes instead of just you and I that own property.
Sure. And we end up paying like almost triple versus passing this 1% sales tax. So, we're shopping here, our kids go to school here, and we have visitors here, tourists, and we have criminals here, and we have regular individuals who's working day to day, right?
Absolutely.
And so we're all participating in this.
Yeah. So. The other thing is in this sales tax, a lot of people don't think it's important to us in law enforcement or EMS or fire rescue is the road infrastructure, all this infrastructure. Okay. Listen, I get the phone calls about the traffic out here. I know everybody loves driving out here on State Road 200, but the complaints that come in, the roads are packed. It's just getting worse because of the population increase. So how do we fix it? Well, you have to have funding, okay? Regardless of what people think, the county doesn't have the funding coming off of trees out here, and they just pick it up and being able to spend it. So what the sales tax does allows to generate, again, from these 33% non-residents to help pay for this infrastructure for the roads in which they're using, the roads that get worn down from their travel. But it allows us to direct it for that infrastructure. So when I respond to a call, if this road infrastructure is better, it will help me to respond to calls for safety. It will help fire rescue respond to calls. It also will alleviate a lot of safety issues because everybody, the listeners you have right now are going, oh yeah, I can think of this particular location at this intersection. Well, if we have the sales tax where they're able to finish projects, it'll start alleviating some of those issues in safety.
Right. So we got clean roads, clear roads. That means we can get the grandma and grandpa faster, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Mom and dad, we can get your kids to the emergency room faster, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And so making sure there's clear communication between law enforcement and EMS and firefighters, those dollars go to that. Good roads and also staffing. I mean, there's a lot that these dollars go to.
There is because, the sales tax is for capital items. Most of the people realize that. But however, when you relieve a budget of paying for those one-time costs in a year, like vehicles, like the roads, that allows you to be able to add the staffing in which you need or keep up with the salaries that are constantly increasing throughout the state. I hear it all the time. People say firemen and law enforcement don't get paid enough. I absolutely agree with you. They don't. They don't get paid enough.
Add teachers to that, too.
That is exactly right. Them poor teachers, because we see what they have to deal with, and my heart goes out to them because they're hard work as well. And again, I understand that because my mother was a teacher for 52 years. So that's what makes this sales tax so important. I need it.
Yes.
Now, and I'll be blunt with people. You know me. I'm usually not.
Sometimes I don't know what he's going to say next.
But the fact is when I hear people say they're against the sales tax, all I'm hearing is you want to defund the police.
Yeah.
And those are my ears, you know.
Well, I think it's also knowledge. I don't think people know exactly. This is why we're doing this. People don't know exactly what the funding's going to, but we're talking about grandma and grandpa. We're talking about your kiddos, right? Broken arms. We're talking about heart attacks. And we're talking about fighting crime when somebody comes to your house and at 1 o'clock in the morning and they got a gun, right? Who's going to show up and on time and do the cars work? So I think it's just knowledge and knowing what the dollars go to. So you're doing a great job explaining that to people.
Well, you're absolutely correct. That's where everything goes. It benefits every single citizen here. A lot of people think this is a new sales tax.
Right. It's
not. No. Right. This all this is continuing what we already have. And a lot of people out there right now have this fear of this 20 years, okay? Keep in mind it's an ordinance. Listen, commissioners can change an ordinance tomorrow if they wish. This just it allows us leeway of ensuring, because look, I've got projects, and I'm pretty sure Chief Banta does as well. Is I've got projects. My buildings are beginning to get too small. We have outgrown our buildings. The chief needs more fire stations.
Yes.
Well, these things don't get built in a month or a year. These have to be projected out 5, 10, 15, and 20 years.
It's amazing.
And so in order for me to project it, I've got to know the cost. Then I have to have the money. Because if I only have money for 5 years, you might as well forget year 10, 15, and 20. Then we have to do this all again.
All again.
So you plan. You're in this business, the financial business, and you're looking to the future. You have to plan it out. Now, keep in mind, costs don't stay the same. We've all seen these rising costs of everything with materials, because today what may cost $100,000, 10 years from now, it'll be $300,000. Okay?
At the inflation rate we've been going at, right?
Exactly. But that's life.
Right.
You and I, when we were kids, I can think of how much gas was, okay? You know, gas itself. I never dreamed that it would be $4 or $5 a gallon. You know, when I was a kid, it was 25 cents.
Yeah. When I was in college,
Remember
it was
the
like
old payphones, which I ain't seen a payphone in a long time, 10 cents. You know, it was a dime to drop it in there.
People are listening. They're like, what are they even talking about?
Yeah, I know. That's exactly right.
The young ones.
But this sales tax helps law enforcement. It helps the citizens. It just does all the way around.
So I want to put a little emphasis on the half penny now, because a lot of people are listening. You have grandkids in this community. Maybe you're listening. You have your own kids going to school in Marion County, right? And our schools have not been fixed or really refurbished. We have 30-year-old trailers sitting at these high schools and schools for these kids to go into. So it's just very unsafe. And so there's that half penny sales tax also at the bottom of this ballot. So you're voting for the 1% and the half penny to help build these schools again. And we are growing. And why wouldn't we want our kids to be in a safer school when it comes to the shell itself? But more than anything, fighting crime and having, policemen at the schools. And, how does this half penny sales tax really going to help the safety of our schools?
That's an excellent question. One of the tragic things that all of us remember is the Marjorie Stoneman incident, okay, and other school shootings. So when that happened, legislation did a fabulous job of creating the law for all these schools and making requirements of keeping the schools secure. And one of the challenges that I know that our school district has faced is the older schools of not being able to harden. And what we mean by hardening it is making it secure so that the general individual out in the public can't just walk on campus like they've done with a gun and start killing our youth. What this particular sales tax does, it assists in that infrastructure, them making the buildings better, preparing these capital items, and building new schools so that they are up to secure and safe. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you every penny is going to go towards that particular item, but what I can tell you is when they have the funding, and in order to take care of these buildings, it helps us in law enforcement and in the Safe Schools program to be able to pay for those things. That's keeping the kids safe on an everyday, regular basis when they are on campus. Because I know the parents out there. I'm a parent myself. Now, both my boys are out of the house. Thank the good Lord, they're gone. My refrigerator is finally full again. But the fact is, you want to keep them safe. So parents are always worried about their safety. That's what my kids have to be safe. How can that person get on campus? Well, the way we do it is you got to spend money to secure these campuses, and the school cannot do it. The districts can't do it unless they have their funding.
Right. You actually have said that best. So for me, I want schools to be fixed up, and I don't want kids falling through the floor of a trailer at these schools. Yeah. But it is, the safety, and it's the whole big picture. So, I want to wrap our conversation up. And if people vote for the 1% half penny sales tax and they say yes, can you wrap it up and say, how does it make Ocala great and continue to build Marion County, the city of Ocala, for the future?
Well, that's a tough one. Make it simple, one little phrase, but you threw the gauntlet there down on me. I'm the only elected official that can say this. So,
okay.
I'm telling everybody to vote yes on the sales tax. If you want a better future, you want a safer future, the sales tax is what gets us there.
Very good. That's all you had to say. Thank you so much. You are an amazing leader and always an amazing speaker, by the way.
I don't know about that.
You are, and you just know how to, tell the story, paint the picture, because sometimes we just forget some of all the things that are the most important things. And it's for the future of our community. And if you guys plan to stay here, vote yes. And just remember, it's the last 2 votes on the ballot. Yes and yes.
That's right.
We're not twisting anybody's arm here. So, Sheriff,
I already did it.
I know. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And we
Absolute
look forward
pleasure.
to having you every year talking about the future scams in
Pinky
our world.
promise.
All right, pinky promise.
Well, that was Charisse and Sheriff Billy Woods kind of talking through some of the issues that we want to pay close attention to when it comes to the funding of very important services here in Marion County and how that will be on the ballot. And we've been talking about that for about a month or so. But Charisse, there are other things that we need to consider when we go into the voting booth this year as well, isn't there?
I know. So local issues, very, very important, but our national issues are very, very important. Who you're voting for when it comes to the president. And because who you vote for, depending on their policy and how they consider things to be top tiered, most important, could really affect Social Security, could affect Medicare and healthcare, and certainly is going to affect taxes. Taxes is a huge target right now. And right now, taxes are on the rise here in 2026 when taxes expire. And so that means you're right now, as everything is set in stone, is your standard deductions are going to go down to half and the tax brackets are going up, and it's probably not going to stop there. So voting is very, very critical and very important. And you really need to pay attention to the policies and how it's going to affect you and your personal economy.
Yeah, you see those stories about the national debt going up to $35 trillion, and the interest on it is about something like $3 billion a day. Where is the money going to come from? And you and I talked about it a lot. The only place government can get money is through taxes or cutting back. And the whole idea of cutting back hasn't really worked out so well, has it?
It hasn't. And we're going to be they said 40 trillion by 2027.
Wow.
So there's clearly no serious cutting happening out there. But, hey, wait, who did you just see on TV? Elon Musk saying he's going to take control of the budget, maybe? That's kind of scary. But
yes, it is.
We'll see what happens with there. A lot of noise out there, you guys. And I know it's probably hard to make decisions on life and elections and all this, but just make sure you understand policy, because that's really the most important thing coming here soon.
Well, as always, if this is one of your major concerns, and it should be really, and you're getting close to retirement, you worry about what the landscape of the country is going to be from a tax standpoint, from a regulation standpoint. These are things that Charisse has to keep up with every time somebody walks through the door. You make your plan, but that plan, of course, is for 20, 25 years. And certainly we're going to have new administrations and new ideas about taxes and the services that we receive from the government. And that includes Social Security and Medicare. We're going to take a look at that coming up next on Retirement Coffee Talk. Welcome back to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth online. Of course, as always, ZinniaWealth.com, ZINNIA Wealth.com. If you've been listening over the last couple of weeks, you know that we've been spending some time talking about a local issue that you in Marion County will see on the ballot, and that is the 1% sales tax, the half-penny sales tax, and that will be right there on your ballot. Of course, everybody's going there for other reasons as well, and that, of course, is to vote for president. So what we thought we would do today is take some time to look at simply the retirement issues. What are the presidential candidates talking about when it comes to the things that affect us on this show? And they would be taxes, Social Security, Medicare, the stock market, and the national debt, the things that we talk about that affect Charisse and you as you plan for your retirement. So we're not here to take a side. We're here basically to say, this is what this candidate says about Social Security. This is what this candidate says. How does that all play out? How does it affect you? So we're going to start here, Charisse, by talking about taxes. So the Trump Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was started in 2017. So you've been dealing with this for the last 6-7 years. It is set to sunset on January 1st of 2026. If Trump is elected, he says it will continue. If Harris is elected, it will likely come to an end. So let's just bite that part off right now and say, let's take that. As you've been helping people plan for retirement over the last 6 years, has the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act been a good thing? Has it not really mattered? Tell me the pros and cons that you have had with planning over the last 7 years.
Yeah. So for the average individual whom we work with, those pre-retirees and retirees, it is a different kind of planning. We have been lucky because the standard deduction for most people, or a lot of people out there, has been much higher than having to itemize taxes. So the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that, Congress, Republicans and Democrats came together in 2017 and they agreed, hey, for the next 10 years, we're going to raise your standard deduction, which gave more people a higher write-off on their income. Mm-hmm. And after 10 years, as long as it didn't cost them more than $1.5 trillion, and then after 10 years, it cost them nothing, then they will revert those taxes back to where we were in 2017, which is January 1st, 2026. We don't know where we're going to stand, but right now it is set to take those deductions, the $29,200. If you're married filing jointly, you get $29,200. That's going to get cut in half if everything stays the same. So if Donald Trump gets picked as the president, his goal is to keep that standard deduction, which has helped a lot of people. And a lot of our tax strategies that we've built into our plans, it's been a huge benefit because people are having to pay less taxes on the average. Now, if Harris comes in, of course, they're going to do other things and revert back, and it's going to cost us more in taxes. But there's other benefits that will come part of that as well. So for the tax changes, it's going to be a whole different kind of planning if Harris wins. And a lot of people, Randy, will go back to itemizing. And I know a lot of you were so happy when you didn't have to itemize your taxes and do that long form anymore. Because, for example, let's say you're writing off the interest on your home that you owned and you had a little side business. You write this off and this off. A lot of households were not writing off $29,200. So now what you're going to find yourself going back to is going back to probably something like that. So is it good? Is it bad? Is it indifferent? Anytime I think an individual pays more taxes, and if it does go back to where it was in 2017, Randy, the average individual is going to be paying $1,000, $2,000, maybe $4,000 more in taxes. That's money that can go back into the community, go back into prosperity and shopping and getting things back on Wall Street straight. So again, I'm a fan of not going back to the old ways and really moving forward, to be honest.
So let me ask you about the whole idea of itemizing. There's things that we talk about here on the show that I, in my mind, think that that's going to be a tax situation. You talk about end of the year tax loss harvesting. We also talk about doing charitable deductions. All of these things would be things that would show up on our taxes. If someone is not itemizing, are they eligible for some of the things that we talk about here on the show?
Those people who are not itemizing and you're taking that standard deduction, there's things called above the line deductions.
Okay.
So if you have an IRA or a 401k and you're 70 and a half, you can do this thing called a qualified charitable distribution. Instead of writing checks out of your checkbook and paying and donating to your churches and to your charities from accounts that you've already paid taxes on, if you're 70 and a half, it's quite the benefit what they have going on right now, because they allow you to gift through this qualified charitable distribution, if you're 70 and a half, those IRA dollars, so you don't have to pay taxes on those, and neither do the churches or the charities. So right now, that's a huge benefit. I don't know how much that's going to change here in 2026 still, to be honest, but it's been a glorious thing. Almost all of our clients use that resource, and they're saving a ton of money in taxes by doing that. The other thing is the donor advisor funds. There's really neat strategies there for donor advisor funds to get other write-offs, et cetera. Because I think the goal here, Randy, is when you're getting ready to retire, and even if you're in retirement, how do we get to a lower tax bracket in the future? Because we've been told, hey, when you retire, you're in a lower tax bracket. But really, 7 out of 10 people, they're in the same tax bracket or a higher tax bracket. So our job as a fiduciary and a retirement planner is number one, it's just not your investments and your income plan. It is that tax strategy. And our tax software and our strategies today, we're going to have to make some changes in the future to tighten down those bolts even more if we do go back to the 2017 taxes.
Well, one of the things that we talk about regularly here on the show is to have a financial advisor in your life who's paying attention to taxes, to have a CPA, to have somebody on your side that you're working with in the tax area is extremely important because, Charisse, just in the last, 10 years, 11 years that you and I have been doing this show, there's been the Secure Act 1, there's been Secure Act 2. It used to be that you could stretch an IRA over your entire lifetime, that it was inherited to you. You could stretch that money out. Now they've changed the rules that you have to empty that account in 10 years. I've heard other people say they'll probably change that to 5 years. There are a lot of changes that are taking place within the tax realm that we have to keep track of, and you have to keep track of, because you're regularly meeting with your clients and say, hey, they changed the rules. We've got to change our plan.
Yeah. And we get a lot of people, Randy, that are coming in and saying, hey, if Harris wins, corporate taxes are going to go up to 28%. And if Trump wins, it's going to go down to 20%. And right now it's at 21%. And what people don't understand is that if corporate taxes do go up, we still pay for it in the long run. These companies will pass that burden to us as consumers, and all of our products will continue to shrink, or we'll pay more for them. So I call it the PPP, policy person position. Vote policy and what works for your personal economy. My personal economy says, hey, let's keep taxes the same so our clients can get more write-offs on average, and keep those corporate taxes down so that we don't get hurt in the back end anyways, and therefore earnings look better, companies are thriving, Wall Street and the stock market is growing.
You're listening to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. We're today taking a look at some of the election issues, the retirement issues that are related to the candidates and the elections. And as a candidate comes out there and says, hey, I want to do this, or I want to propose this, or here's a problem, here's how I'll solve it, any good journalist would say, okay, how are you going to pay for it? And if you talk to Trump, he'll say, we'll pay for it with tariffs. If you talk to Harris, she'll say, we're going to make people pay their fair share. We're going to tax people of higher income. Let's talk about that for just a few minutes here. And the Biden-Harris camp has always said, for those people who are making less than $400,000 a year, no change. For people who are making more, you will have to take on more of a tax burden. So talk to me about that a little bit, because I know that you have a very wide variety of people that come in, people that might come in with $5 or $10 million saved for retirement, other people that might come in with $500,000 saved for retirement. It'll affect people in different ways.
It really will. So the average American, it's not going to affect you that much. It really is not. But the people who really are driven to get income based on your investment portfolio, it's going to be a little bit of a pain point. And then on top of it, if your income is over $400,000, it's even worse. But I'll be honest with you, even right now, Randy, if your income and your married filing jointly is over $133,000, you don't get to use the normal tax bracket like everybody else. You get to use that awesome AMT tax where you're paying 26 to 28% on your dollars, right? So right now, people who do have higher incomes, it's not favorable anyways. But people who do hit over that 400,000, it looks like, it'd be a bigger dent. And some people say, hey, well, that's not fair. I've done well, blah, blah, blah. But I really think it's a matter of fact, Randy, because, the individual that only saved $500,000 or $1 million, they've done well too, right? And so I'm always a believer, believe it or not, that I'm okay paying a little bit more taxes because I do make a little bit more money. So why not pour it back into our community? I'm here to serve. But there is a number where I'm just like, okay, that's a little too much now. Like, really? Like, then I wouldn't say it's not fair. I'll just say, is there a medium number here, right? And I feel like we're at that medium number right now. I can handle the AMT right now at 26 and 28. But if it were to go to 33 and 36, I might get a little upset personally, right? And along with other people, not crying the blues over here, but we all work hard and we all have our own lives and we live in our own silos. So saving every dollar is important, but also helping the entitlement programs stay alive, because we don't want retirees having to go back to work because they get cut. To me, is a huge part and a big part of the initiative for Republicans and Democrats.
Currently, the corporate tax level is 21% for corporations. Harris wants to raise that to 28%. Trump wants to lower that to 20%. Let's talk about just that right now because you are a business owner.
Yeah, so I'll start with Harris. Democrats typically advocate for a higher corporate tax, and Harris would likely support raising the corporate tax rate from the current level to potentially 28%, right, from where it stands today. The argument is that increased corporate taxes could provide more government revenue to fund Social Security, Medicare, and other programs for retirees, right, and just people in general. But high corporate taxes might also reduce corporate profits, right? We talked about that earlier, which could impact stock prices and retirees who are invested in the stock market in their 401ks and their IRAs and your pensions. You'll probably see a slower growth of your portfolios as companies face higher tax burdens. And on top of that, they're going to pass the risk off to you anyways because costs of goods are going to go up. So let's talk, and that leads to, potential inflation, right? And we've already had shrink inflation. If you've seen the recent Snicker bar, it's like half the size. I have to buy 2 for the same price to get my original 1, right? And it's a positive, and there's also negatives. Every campaign, it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican, there's always a pro and con to each one. And we just got to pick what we personally feel is best for us. And this is what I love about voting. We get the choice. As long as you do your homework and you understand how it's going to affect you and you really dig in, I think that helps people really figure out, okay, is it person or policy I want to vote for? And right now, it's all about policy and how can it help us get out of debt? How can it leave more money in the consumers' pockets? How does it keep moving the stock market up without, hyperinflation? So there's a lot of concern there. So that's Harris's take, right? Trump would likely continue advocating for lower corporate taxes and maintaining the current status, right? And what that does is it brings higher earnings to the companies. It makes Wall Street happier. And if you have investment portfolios and you live on those investments, it just helps all together with capital gains. It helps all together with the markets moving forward and the growth of your portfolio. And it's going to affect everybody, right? Whether they raise corporate taxes or they don't raise corporate taxes and lower them, because somehow, some way, somewhere else in the program, in this campaign, things have to be paid for, right? But there's other things that we can shift to and make changes to. You know what I like, Randy? I like to stay in the middle because maybe corporate taxes could go up 1% or 2, and Harris wants to do that, but she wants it to go to 28, which I think is a little too steep. And this is my opinion, by the way. And then Trump says, no, I want to take it from 21% and bring it down to 20. And I'm just like, I don't even know if that's necessary, but I'm happy with a 22% or 23%, somewhere that would make all people happy. And it's not going one way too far or the other way. And we're still all helping each other. Like, where is that person in all this? Like, do I need to run for election, Randy? I mean, I like to make common sense of it. If I was running, I'd be like, well, they say this and our party always says this, I'm going to go right in the middle. I might not get elected, right? I'm too fair.
Let's talk about this whole how we're going to pay for it thing. Trump has said he wants to eliminate the taxes on Social Security for seniors. He wants to eliminate taxes on tips, eliminate taxes on overtime, eliminate taxes on if you buy a car, the interest that you would be able to be deductible, that kind of thing. So then you have to say, where is this all going to come from? You're saying lower taxes, lower taxes, lower taxes, but where is the extra money going to come from? He will always say tariffs. So what is your thought on tariffs? He wants to do stiffer tariffs on Chinese imports. I have heard a lot of things that say tariffs don't work. Tariffs will cause inflation. Tariffs will hurt our economy. Your thought?
Okay, so I have a few views of tariffs. So let me kind of give you some positive notes on tariffs. So the one thing I do like about tariffs is that it protects jobs, domestic jobs, right? And it also brings new players to the table. Like, instead of bringing these imports in, maybe a company here locally will just start making those products. So it brings prosperity, and it protects our jobs instead of bringing those imports in. Basically, for them to bring their stuff in that they're making in Taiwan or wherever they're making it, it's going to cost them some points to do business with America. But tariffs can also hurt because these other countries are going to say, well, well, fine, we're going to do the same thing to you. And so what good does it do us if that's the case? So I am pro tariffs, but I'm also cautious about the double-edged sword when it comes to these tariffs for sure. Now, how can they really hurt us? Well, higher consumer prices, right?
Which is inflation, which is what we've been fighting.
Right. So I'm certain inflation will go up. So we're trying to keep it down, right? We got it down. And then there's also the disruption of the stock market. I would have to see a well-oiled plan for me to be like, yeah, tariffs, Trump, yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a good idea. I just think it needs to be done right, and it needs to have a method to it. And, you have to have some respect in all this, right?
You're listening to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Today, looking at some of the retirement issues that will be on the ballot as you go out and vote in just a matter of days. One of the other issues about taxes is the capital gains tax. Currently, the top rate is 20%. Former President Trump proposes that the capital gains tax will be of 15%. Harris proposes a 28% capital gains cap and an additional 5% for people who make over $1 million. So capital gains, when Warren Buffett talks about this, he says, look, I pay 15%. My secretary pays much more. I'm a billionaire. She's not. Why is that fair? He brings up a very good point that people of great wealth receive their income in a different way, and that way is taxed lower. Harris says, let's make it fair. Pay your fair share. Move that number up. She thinks you should move it up to 28%. Talk to me about capital gains.
I do worry about this capital gains rate changing. I'll be honest. I actually like it where it's at. So even though we like it where it's at, doesn't mean it should stay there, because we have trillions of dollars in debt. Somebody's got to pay the piper, and it's obviously going to be us, or the government slows down spending, which we all know that's a joke. That's not going to happen. So the only other way to really do it is raise revenue. The one thing that Harris has brought to the table is that 28%, it's high, right? But the one thing I don't like is the additional 5% for people earning over $1 million. I'm not a fan of that. And the one thing I'm good with what Trump is proposing, 15% is a good number. Long-term capital gains right now are 20 and as the max, but a lot of people are at 15%. So I don't know. I just think that raising that capital gains tax too fast is going to leave a bad message to the Americans that, hey, we've saved, we've been working hard, and now you're going to nearly double our capital gains. I think people are going to be very angry about that. Me personally, yes, I'm going to be angry. And again, why not like a happy medium, Randy? Right now, the highest capital gains that you pay is 20%. And if Harris wants to raise it to 28%, why don't we do 25, nix at 28, and get rid of the additional 5%? Like, is it really going to move the needle at the end of the day? And I think every little piece helps, but I'm still in point in question when it comes to that. So again, I like to stay in the middle. I think lowering the capital gains, the highest capital gains rate, I'm not sure that's the best idea either, Trump. To be honest, yes, I love it. That's a great deal for me and a lot of people. But if we're trying to keep more money in for the revenue and to lower our debt and to prosper, there's got to be that in between. So I really like how things are right now, believe it or not.
All right. You're listening to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers, talking through some of the retirement issues that will be on the ballot as you vote for president. Let's move our way into Social Security. President Trump says, as he's always said, I want to protect Medicare and protect Social Security. Yet there's only very, very few lines about that within his platform. It would be very good for retirees, as he says, he wants to eliminate the taxes on Social Security for seniors. Yet, we need to know this, that there's about $1.35 trillion that comes in to Social Security every year. That's from our paychecks. The taxation on Social Security brings in about $51 billion. So therefore, if he takes that out, that's money that goes into that trust fund. And that trust fund is going to run out in 2033. If he eliminates the taxes on Social Security, it could empty that trust fund quicker, that could be a real downside here.
I know. Like, listeners, you guys are all listening. It's like, do we or don't we, right?
Yeah.
Because I have said for years, I wish the retirees didn't have to pay up to 85% on their Social Security and taxes, right? Some people are at 50%, some people are at 0%, but it's a hefty tax. And I always wish it went away. Or I wish they would give a retiree credit. Now, pay the tax, keep the rules the same, but based on age and, if somebody's passed away or not, and now you're living on a single income and retirement, give a credit. I mean, that to me is a no-brainer. I came up with that the other day and I went, a credit would be amazing. That would just help soften the blow when income goes down, because you lose a Social Security check when somebody's passed away, maybe even part of a pension. So I really don't think the answer is getting rid of this Social Security tax. Okay. I do love the idea of lowering it and changing the rules within, so that, because we do need that revenue, but I would like to take some of those pain points off the retirees, just depending how they're invested. And, I could come up with probably a really good plan here. So I think just taking the tax away completely from Social Security could hurt us, because the goal is that if you're retiring or you're in retirement now, if we do that, that will be a crippling effect to the Social Security Trust Fund being solvent here in 2033 and to be able to still give you your checks.
All right. Now, Harris's thoughts on Social Security are she wants to continue to support Social Security and Medicare the way they are, but move taxes up to continue to fund those programs. And who pays those taxes? Again, the people who are making more than $400,000 a year. People under that threshold would not see any kind of increase.
Right. So for the average retiree, this doesn't hurt them, because they're not making over $400,000 a year when they're retired. And over $250,000 a year is not likely, right? So for the retiree, I don't think this is a big deal. People who are saving money in their 401ks and making money, that's going to be a pain point for us people who are making those types of income streams, right? Your attorneys, the professors, business owners, you name it. Yeah, it's going to hurt. But if I had to choose between the two evils, I would say let's protect Social Security. Let's protect the retiree who is not going back to get a job, who does not deserve to go back and get a job, who health-wise might not be able to go back to get a job, and then to work at age 65. I mean, come on, that's not justified, and that's not the American way. So if we keep the tax reform where it is on Social Security today, and we keep it the same, doesn't go down, it doesn't go up, then yes, then I have to side a little bit on Harris's side. I hate to say it out loud here, but I'm going to, because I am personally willing to pay a little bit more in taxes to make sure Social Security survives. And because my clients and my family are counting on that one stool of income, and if it goes away, or if it goes down, if your Social Security checks go down 20%, you have to have an average of $1 million to $2 million saved somewhere else to get those dollars back into your monthly, billfold. And so I trying to stay in the middle. I'm not going to stay in the middle here. I'm okay with people who have incomes over $400,000 to pay a little bit more. Not a whole lot more, but definitely a little bit more.
You're listening to Retirement Coffee Talk with Charisse Rivers at Zinnia Wealth. Online, find us, zinniawealth.com. As you're listening to this, and if you pop in on the middle of it, you say, okay, I'm kind of interested in what the take is here. Go to our podcast. You'll hear all of this, where we started out talking about taxes and paying your fair share and all the different ideas that the candidates have and how that affects you and your retirement planning. Find your podcast on iTunes, on Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Just look us up at Retirement Coffee Talk.
Here's my final thoughts, because I know we got to shorten this up. Stay focused on your long-term plans. Political changes are temporary, and your retirement plan should be built around weathering the market when it goes up and down, period. Remember, policy is important, and you get to choose. It's your choice. It's your one time to stand up and be like, you know what? I'm going this direction, but just understand policy is the only thing we always ask, and go out and vote. If your vote is all about protecting your moms and your dads and your grandmas and grandpas, that's a great reason to vote, because this could really put a dent in their financial future. So at least if you're not going to do it for you, do it for them, because I know you want to. Thank you all for tuning in. If you missed any of this show, you can go to our podcast, Retirement Coffee Talk. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on your Apple phones as a special podcast. We're on iTunes. You can do a rewind and see what we said there. As usual, thank you so much for tuning in. Live by design and not by default, and we'll see you here next week.
This has been Retirement Coffee Talk. To find out more about how the strategies we've discussed on this program can build the retirement you've been wanting, call Zinnia Wealth at 352-368-3680 or visit us online at zinniawealth.com.
Charisse Rivers is an investment advisor representative of Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments can fluctuate, and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Charisse Rivers is licensed in your state, please contact their office. Zinnia Wealth Advisory, LLC is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency, and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Any client experiences discussed during this show are unique to that client. They are not meant to imply or suggest you will experience the same results. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Charisse Rivers, NPN Insurance License Number 8718011.